One day I woke up and I realized everything that I'd earned, everything that I'd worked so hard for is no longer there. I'm sitting in a hospital room, I'm looking at these faces, and they're not faces of my teammates. They're not faces of the cool kids I'm hanging out with. They're not the faces of these other people that know my name. It's just family. It's just family and people that love me. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, where's the medals? Where's the trophies? Where's the popularity? It's all gone. Because at that moment, nothing else matters. I'm sitting there just thinking, how can I learn to walk again? It's crazy to think that at one moment I had everything in my hands and I had my whole life figured out at the age of 16, or at least I thought I did. And then the next day you're waking up in a hospital room and you're trying to figure out, how do I learn to ride again? Will I be able to ride again? Can I walk? When do I get out of this hospital bed? But let me tell you how this all kind of came to be. I was born and raised in North Las Vegas, Nevada. I grew up with 2 older brothers and an older sister, and ever since we were young kids, my parents kept us all in sports. But as I grew older, I found that my dad loved watching football, and we were a big Raiders fan, and so we'd always be watching them, or every Sunday was spent doing that, so I figured, what better way to maybe start spending more time with my dad than to start playing a sport that I know that he loves. When I started my freshman year of high school football, I had a great group of friends, and after my first football season, I got into wrestling because my buddy Ryan Call talked me into it. We ended up qualifying for the state championships, and so we went and we all performed at an exceedingly high level. It was at that moment that I really felt like I had a future with wrestling. I had an amazing record that year and did great at the state finals. I was expected to be one of the top wrestlers to look out for, along with my buddies Chad and Sean Miller. At that moment, at the end of my sophomore year after the state finals and after wrestling in a couple of out-of-state tournaments, I felt like I had everything right then and there. I had worked so hard for everything that I had achieved, and I had climbed the ladder so high and had been setting records and just kind of just blowing myself away. And that summer, I felt that I had the opportunity to go wrestle in college, and I was looking at an opportunity to go. And it was literally at that moment that I felt like I had everything in my hands. I felt like I knew where I was going with my life. I felt that I knew where I wanted to go in my wrestling career and my football career, and everything that I had thought was important, everything that I felt was true passion for sports and fitness. I felt like I understood that. I had the trophies, I had the medals, I had the popularity. I was looked at by other schools. I was a known name in the Vegas Valley. And just like that, everything was taken away from me. It was a mid-September night, and I wasn't playing football at the time because I just injured my right shoulder, tearing my labrum in a tackle. And this was just preseason, but I had to sit out, so I couldn't make the practices, so I couldn't make the game. I was actually house sitting for my grandma, and I was laying there on her couch. The night was kind of coming to an end, and my sister had just dropped me off at her house. I was laying there on my right side, just like this, kind of watching TV, and I remember feeling this tingling sensation, kind of like when your foot falls asleep, that started in my right leg. And I didn't really think anything of it. I thought maybe it's just because I was laying weird or just laying on my right side. Maybe I was just at a weird angle. And all of a sudden, the tingling started shooting up my leg a little more, and now it was kind of into my side. And I thought, well, this is kind of strange. I never felt that before. And soon the tingling started shooting up into my arm, into my hand. And I'm thinking, well, you know what, maybe I should just walk this off. Maybe I can get rid of this feeling. I knew in the back of my mind my sister was on her way back to my grandma's house because I needed my phone charger and I had her go grab it. I get up, I start walking around, and I take 4 steps, and on the 4th step, my right leg just shoots right out from under me. Almost like someone had just kicked it right out under. I mean, I came down hard. And I remember coming down and smacking my nose on a marble table, so now my nose is bleeding. My shoulder, which had been very injured, got popped out of place again, and my phone came crashing down. So when my phone came crashing down, the battery popped out, and I'm sitting there and I'm freaking out. I don't know what's going on, but I notice I can't move my right side. There's nothing going on. So then I had to grab my phone with my left hand, put it back together because I couldn't use my right, and turn it back on and call someone. I should have just called the ambulance, but I knew my sister was right around the corner. She had to have been close by. So I called Lauren. I said, Lauren, like, you need to come pick me up. I can't feel anything on my right side. I need you to come get me. And Lauren's freaking out. She's like, oh my God, what's going on? I was like, I don't know, but I need you to come get me. Lauren busts through the door about 5 minutes later, and literally, I don't know what it was, but straight picks me up on her back and carries me to the car. And my sister, she's not, I mean, she's small. She's like frail little thing. But I mean, just some Rambo type strength, picks me up, carries me in the car, calls my parents, says, hey, you need to meet us down at the hospital. There's something wrong with Brian. He can't move his right side. So my parents, they come down, and we all get there, and my dad's freaking out, my mom's freaking out. We're all kind of panicking because none of us know what's going on. I can't move my right side. Now the hospital's freaking out, and they're like, why didn't you call the ambulance? And I tell them the reason why. Luckily, they had a room available. They rush me in, and they tell my dad, Mr. Matthews, don't worry. You only have to worry if there's bleeding in the brain. So they come back about 10 minutes later. All right, sir, so there's bleeding on the brain, but you don't have to worry. It's only really serious if Flight for Life comes. Sure enough, Flight for Life comes, and so my dad's losing it, and he's flipping out. The whole time, I'm trying to stay calm because I have no idea what's going on. I'm 16. Just 2 days ago, I felt like I had the whole world in my hands. I felt like I knew where I was going, and now I'm wondering, what's tomorrow's gonna look like? Do I even have a tomorrow? What do I tell my family? What do I tell my friends? I don't even know what's happening. From there, the next 5 days were probably the most monumental, life-changing 5 days I ever experienced in my life, and made me the man that I am today. Day one, I'm sitting there in the bed. I have all these kind of wires hooked on me. My family's surrounding me. I have some loved ones there. I've got family there now just hearing about this. Meanwhile, I've got my oldest brother in Afghanistan who's in the military. Just all he has is just word of mouth. So he's freaked out. He can't get a hold of me. So it's just complete chaos in my life. And all I can do is just sit there and think about, where do I go from here? So I'm no longer even worried about where I'm gonna be going to college or whether or not I'll be accepting a wrestling scholarship, but now I'm worried about, am I even gonna be able to survive? Is this the last time I get to see my family? I don't even know, because I still don't even know what's going on. Throughout the next 5 days, they start running multiple tests on me. They do heart echoes. They do ultrasounds. They take, I can't even tell you how many blood samples. And every single day they're coming back to me saying, Brian, we don't know what's going on. Matthews, we still don't know how this stroke even happened. Most of the time, strokes are caused by high blood pressure, stress, blood clots, things like that. A lot of things that unhealthy people go through or experience. It's crazy being able to tell this story because I don't think it's fair for someone at my age to have a story like this to tell. And when I was going through all of this, I thought the same thing of, how could I be so healthy and live such a good life and not do any drugs and have good grades and obey my parents and just do everything right and still have all this happen. I'm sitting there in the hospital room and I'm thinking, I'm too young for this. I don't even know what's going on. Do other people my age go through this? Is this something that happens when you're 16? I don't know, right? But I know I'm not supposed to be feeling like I just lost everything, but that's how it felt. As everyone around me seems to just be folding or crying or just being upset, I knew through my sports and through everything I've been through that resiliency and just being strong, sometimes you are the only one that's gonna be strong. And even though I felt like I was the weakest person in the room, I felt like emotionally I had to be the strongest. I had neurosurgeons and neurologists telling me I'll never be able to even play ping pong again. Or they just wanted me practically wrapped in bubble wrap. So you hear that from throwing kids around on a mat or just spearing through someone coming across the middle when you're playing linebacker or meeting someone in the hole, to, hey man, you're gonna live a life full of Band-Aids and bubble wraps. It's just, that's disheartening. And I'm like, I'm 16, I got a whole life to live ahead of me and I can't play table tennis anymore? That doesn't even make sense. Finally, on day 4, they come back and they're like, all right, Brian, we have one more test that we want to run on you. It's kind of a risky procedure, but it's the only other thing that we can think of, and it's what's called a cerebral angiogram. So what that is they go through your femoral artery in your thigh, and they take a very tiny camera and they weave it in that femoral artery all the way up through your carotid arteries, and they take pictures of your carotid arteries running through your neck. So they did that, and they come back and they're like, all right, Brian, so what you have is an extremely rare disease called Moyamoya, something in 1 in every 2 million kids has, and we have never seen a case like this ever. Now in the medical field, a brand new disease or something that is still new to them can be something that's 20, 30 years old because it takes so much time and so much research to study these things. Now, we didn't know this at the time, but this thing had only been discovered about 20 years beforehand, about 2 years before I was born back in 1991. The doctors told me how rare of a disease this was and that the only cure for this would be brain surgery. Now, at that point, my mind is blown. I don't even know how to take that. I'm sitting there thinking about how do I come back and win the state championships, and now I'm thinking, brain surgery? Do I even make that? What are the chances I do? And where do I even go? The procedure performed to cure this is what was called a dual bypass. They told me that it'd be such a bigger risk having this done in Nevada or many other places because it's so new. Not many surgeons know how to cure this thing. And there was also word that one doctor came up with a cure a long time ago, but they have no idea where that guy was now. So we heard that and it gave us some hope, but still it was very risky because they said without the procedure being done, I had a less than 15% chance of living. Or we started searching for this Moyamoya Center or who could fix this problem, and we actually came across Dr. Gary Steinberg over at Stanford University. At that moment, we finally had some hope, even though throughout the turmoil, we finally found what possibly could be an answer for everything going on. So sure enough, we call them and we leave them a message, and within 5 minutes later, they call us back, giving us all the details of the surgery, our surgery dates, what exactly we'd be doing, when, the downtime, what are the chances of my survival, and all these other details. So that was the next step that we had to take, was figuring out when we were going to get this surgery done and how I was going to fit this in with my life, because I still had school. I was still highly active with a lot of other things, but now my whole life has changed. So what do I do now? It was September, and now my surgery date was scheduled for November 18th. That would be my first one, and my second one would be on Thanksgiving Day of 2009. Now, while laying in the hospital bed on days 1 and 2, I couldn't move anything. I couldn't feel anything. My the right side of my face was drooped, and I remember thinking every single day, even from the first day that I got in there, I was thinking, I just need if I can move my toes, if I can move my feet, then I know I can move everything else. I just need to know I have feeling. So day 1, I had nothing, and I just couldn't feel anything. Day 2, I kept trying, and finally day 3, I just kept believing that, man, if I could just move my feet, if I could feel my fingers, I can get out of this bed. Sure enough, on day 3, I could finally start feeling my toes moving, and it gave me hope, and it gave me that push to just keep moving, because I wasn't going to be satisfied with just being a vegetable or just being okay with being in a bed paralyzed. I knew I had to keep going, and I knew somehow, some way I wanted to get back on that map. I wanted to get back on that field. I wanted to be with my boys. I didn't accept the belief that this was it, or that, hey man, your sports are cut short. I knew I'd worked too hard, and I knew I'd come too far to let this be okay, or let this be accepted as, hey man, this is it. Good job in those last 16 years, but this is it. You're done playing sports. I just didn't believe that. So I knew no matter how much I was doubted or how much people thought, like, hey, this is it for Brian, that if I could just move, if I could just get up out of bed, if I could just learn how to walk again, I could learn how to run again. If I could learn how to run again, I could learn how to start taking people down again. But I had to take it one step at a time. And my one step was just being able to move my foot. I didn't want to accept where I was where I was going to be for the rest of my life, and I let that drive me every single day. So fast forward to the 5th day, they finally released me and put me on so many precautions. I was on multiple different medicines, and I started out with physical therapy at home with a physical therapist named Mark from New York. And he was awesome. I mean, the guy changed my life, was just a big part of why I ended up going and studying the physical therapy field. But he bought me a Wii, and I thought it was just a game, but just doing those motor skills, playing baseball, tennis, bowling, things like that, being on my feet, being on a balance board, really helped me get a lot of my motor movement back. So I worked with Mark for about a month, and then from there I was on crutches and started to continuously progress. And every day, even though I wasn't where I was, I knew that I was gonna get there one day. One of the terms that I use when I'm training athletes or clients is you didn't get to where you are overnight, and you're not gonna get where you want to be overnight either. Now in this case, this was entirely different. I was where I was at through so many years of training and so much work, and overnight it was gone. And now I knew that overnight it wasn't gonna be back. But literally within 24 hours, it was all gone. So it made no sense. And this was one of those crazy instances where that rule didn't apply. I knew it was gonna take a lot of time and a lot of patience and a lot of faith to really get me back to where I wanted to be. I remember going through school and people would carry stuff for me, or they'd help me with doors, and I just hated it. I hated feeling like I was different now because I had these disabilities. And I decided in my mind that, man, these disabilities are only in my head. They're only small setbacks to now, because if I can move, then I can improve, and I'm going to continue trying no matter what anyone says, no matter what anyone tells me I can't do, and I'm gonna get back on that mat. And I kept telling myself, I'm gonna keep doing it. One day I remember my dad called out to me. He was in the kitchen, and he's like, hey son, come look at this. I want you to read this. So all right, in the newspaper there was an article with a list of the wrestlers to look out for the next year. And mind you, I was in the state tourney the last year, and I had gone to plenty of out-of-state tournaments and placed in a ton of tournaments. My name was known. And I remember seeing my friend's name, Sean Miller. I remember seeing Chad Oram. I remember seeing Nick Biaggi in there, Caton Gomez, and my name wasn't there. And it set such a fire in me. I had worked so hard, and I was already counted out for the next year. They already thought that I wasn't gonna be there. They figured he's done. And I remember getting so angry and so upset. But I remember I put that in the fuel tank. I remember letting that sit in me, and I thought about it every night. I pinned that article up on the wall, and telling myself I'm gonna be on that list, and if I'm not, I'm gonna make sure my name is known again. So fast forward to 3 months later, it's now November, and a week before my first surgery, I went down to Stanford, and they ran numerous amounts of tests on me. Even though they had a whole area in their hospital to research just this, and they had a team set up just for this, they still were so blown away on how I was still alive, or with the circumstances I was in, how I'd made it this far. The doctor told me that because of the severity of the blockage of blood flow in my brain, wasn't even supposed to make it past the age of 4, which blew my mind. So right then and there, I just knew I had God on my side. I knew that everything that had come up in my life till that point was for a reason. Even if it didn't even make sense, it all started making sense right then and there. So they did these tests for about a week, and then finally on November 18th was my first surgery date, and they went on the left side. And when they went in, they measured how many liters of blood flow in and out, and I had such a bad blood flow is actually flowing backwards, and just another testament to how crazy this whole situation was. It blew my whole family away, and even the doctors. A week later, I was getting operated on the right side. Then a week after that, I was finally released from the hospital. When I was released from the hospital, the last question I asked my doctor, besides the precautions, what I can do, what I cannot do, was, can I wrestle again? And he was like, of course you can. You have to get cleared by a doctor first, but yeah, go for it. And it just inspired me, and it got me back to training hard every single day to get to where I wanted to be. This is now a month after my surgery dates. I'm slowly recovering and slowly making it back into the whole game. And I remember my junior year of wrestling, I thought that I would be able to bounce back strong. And I think leading up into the regional championships, I won maybe 9 matches. I remember there were times I was so discouraged and so just heartbroken because I had come so far so long before, and now I'm starting over and I'm losing to kids I shouldn't be losing to. It really took me back and really humbled me because I used to think that I was one of the best, and now I was no longer at that point. But I kept grinding. I kept going, and through the tears, through the pain, through the bruised ribs or the dislocated shoulder, I kept going and I kept wrestling through it, because there was nothing that was going to stop me from getting to my goal of where I wanted to be, being back to being a competitor whose name was known. I remember just losing so much, thinking every single time I got out there that I'm gonna give it my 100%. I don't care what happens, but as long as I walk off that mat knowing I gave my all and I left it all out there, whether it be sweat, tears, blood, no matter what, I wanted to be satisfied. If I walked off that mat knowing that I gave it my all, that's all I cared about. That's all that mattered. And I did that every single match, and it was hard. My junior year was tough, and sure enough, my senior year, I bounced back strong. I started winning tons of matches. I was number one in our division again and was able to make it back and place in the regional tournament and qualify for the state championships again. That was huge, because I was counted out by so many, and yet because I kept pushing through, because I didn't give up, because I wasn't going to accept no for an answer and wasn't going to lay in a bed and not move my feet or just accept that the way things are is how they're going to be forever. Despite what the books say, despite my odds or my chances, I was going to prove those wrongs. I was going to be the percentage. I was going to be that success story, and that's why I decided to live my life to. I decided at that age and at that moment, after the surgeries, after the rehab, after the losses, after the wins, after the victories and the downfalls, life was too small and too short to worry about the petty things, to worry about the little things that make us upset, to worry about something as small as someone cutting you off when you're driving. Is it really worth raging out? Is it really worth fighting with the people you love when really life is too small that you should be enjoying everyday life and be living it up to the fullest? And that's where I decided to take my life. Going in with that mindset, as I progressed every single year, I just became a more outgoing person. I became a more just open to everything type of guy, and just taking everything how it comes. And I would take new opportunities, things that I was scared of, and I would just do it because I didn't believe that God took me through that and I had survived that just to live in a life of fear. I remember thinking that if it challenged me, if I was scared of it, it challenged me and made me nervous, I had to do it. And my mom, I remember, like, there'd be times where my mom would be like, oh, don't do that, I'm worried you're gonna get injured. And I'd tell her, or my grandma or my dad, and tell them, like, hey man, I didn't make it this far to die going off a roller coaster off the stratosphere, right? It wasn't like that. It was, hey man, listen, there's a reason why I'm here. I'm not gonna be taken out by an incident. Now that didn't mean I lived a life that was making stupid decisions to be like, oh, well, I survived that, so I'm gonna do this. No, it wasn't like that. I made smart decisions. I decided to really take on the challenge of getting over the fear of obstacles or getting over things that I felt like I could never do. And finally got to a point where I was living in Vegas, and now I'm at the age of 21, so this is fast forward to 5 years later, and I was feeling stuck in a rut. Every single day of my life, no matter if I progressed or not, I felt like this story still needed to be told. I felt like my life wasn't meant to be just a lifeguard or meant to be stuck in Vegas, not progressing. And it got to a point where I was losing sleep overnight, and I knew God had bigger plans for me. I knew that where I was at right now was not where I needed to be. So I remember I called my mom early. It was a Tuesday morning, and it was 4 a.m., and I was talking to my mom, and I was like, Mom, I just feel like I'm going nowhere. I feel like I'm not surrounded by people that are gonna push me to be something better. I know something within my heart is telling me that I need to move. I need to change my direction, change my path. I need to leave everything I know and get uncomfortable so that God could use me in a bigger way, so that I could be challenged and pushed in a way that would make me change other people's lives, because I knew what I was doing then was not what I needed to be doing. I knew I was stuck in a rut. I hated the way I was going. I knew that what I had been through was for a purpose, and I wasn't achieving that purpose. I wasn't where I was supposed to be. So I'm talking to my mom. It's 4 a.m. I'm going through sleepless nights, and it was to a point where I was used to it. And she was like, why don't I fly you out to Irvine? Why don't you just come check this out? Now, at the time, I hated California because it's the stereotypical traffic sucks. It's expensive to live there. But I was like, it's a vacation, so let's go, right? So my mom flew me out to Irvine, and I remember when I landed, something in my heart just told me I needed to be there. I remember getting picked up from LAX from my boy John, and my brother Clayton, and they were so different from Vegas. They were so different from the vibe. And they were just happy, man. They were so happy for me to be down there. And they're like, dude, you got to be down here. And I was like, man, I just don't know how I would do it. But I could feel it. I remember standing outside, and as cliche as it sounds, I remember it was raining. And I was standing outside, and I was just thinking, like, man, my heart feels right here. And I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I need to be here. So a couple days later, I flew back, and I didn't know how I was going to do this. I didn't know how I was going to make something that felt so right happen, but I knew I needed to do it. I knew I needed to leave everything I knew, everything I was comfortable with, all the connections I had, the job opportunities, and just leave it because it wasn't me. I needed to take a step. I remember I grabbed a book by Eric Thomas called The Secret to Success. It just changed the whole game for me. I would read it every night before I went to bed, and I remember thinking that this guy was in a situation of poverty, yet he is now living a life that I feel like I should be living, a life where I should be inspiring people, motivating people to be better, and I needed to make that move soon. So I remember I set the date, July 25th. I remember telling my friends, I had so many friends that were disappointed and people that were upset, but I knew that was gonna happen. I knew that change was gonna be uncomfortable, not only for me, but for other people, because they were used to where they were at, and so was I, and I knew that I couldn't be there anymore. Finally, the day came, July 25th, man, I up and moved. As scary as it was, it felt so right. From there, I just started making a way in California. I started working for my grandpa, who owns a construction company. Then I got an opportunity to work at In-N-Out, and I absolutely loved that job. It was so much fun. I remember just having just great leadership ever since I came out here. The first being with my grandpa, who taught me tons of life lessons and tons of funny jokes. At In-N-Out, my store manager, who was just always a positive guy, who just loved having me around, who understood my work ethic, and therefore him and I, we just bonded together, man, and it was great. And it was great growing with him and the company and just being around great leaders like that. Finally, I knew being out here, though, I still had such a big passion for fitness. I had a big passion for sports, and I still had a competitive edge, and I needed to feed that competitive hunger. And as any athlete knows, man, you're just not satisfied with being stagnant. I needed to find a way. So I remember Clayton, he introduced me to Josh Graves, the owner of Fitness on Fire. And when I met Josh, man, it was something about him that I knew this guy was put in my life for a reason, man. We are crossing paths right now for a reason. And whether that me just being one of his clients, just training with him, I didn't know what that was, but there was something about Josh that dude lit a passion inside of me and a fire inside of me to change people's lives. And he understood it, and he understood me. He would be able to see things inside of me that I couldn't see inside myself. And I knew I needed people like that were gonna push me to an uncomfortable zone, that were gonna challenge me in ways I've never been challenged. And that's what Josh did. So I started training with Josh about a month after I moved down here. And I just loved the energy. I loved what Fitness on Fire brought. I mean, it was something that I had never done before. And I'd been training and working out since I was probably 12. I'm talking about like lifting weights and just doing things that were tough, but not gonna be too challenging. But I remember I just wanted to get big and just wanted to be just a fit guy. And Josh completely changed that around. And one day he approached me after a session and said, hey man, I'm opening my own doors soon, and I would love for you to be the first person I bring on. And I thought, man, what an opportunity. I remember thinking, man, I would love that. Doing what I love the most, which is working out every day of my life, like, who gets that kind of opportunity? Not only that, but I would also be under amazing leadership. So Josh took me under, man. I learned so much through him, and I shared my story with him, and we're just a solid team. And from that day, my life has been nothing but helping others and changing other lives around me, and being able to use my story not only to inspire others, but to motivate others about the times when it gets hard. Injuries are just a roadblock. That's all they are. But it doesn't need to be something that's going to stop us from achieving everything that we need to do. If you let it, then at that point we fail. The moment you let obstacles and things in our life get in the way of achieving our goals, and you let that be the end all be all, that's the point of failure. But the moment that you decide, hey, I'm not gonna let this stop me, this broken wrist or this broken leg or sprained ankle, like, I'm not gonna let this stop me. It's just a minor setback. And as long as I keep pushing, as long as I keep trying and have patience and believe that where I'm at right now is not where I'm gonna be, that's gonna be your secret to success right there. Having experienced everything I've gone through and all the learning lessons that I've taken from this, honestly, I don't know where my next steps are, but I know where I'm at now is where I need to be, and that's inspiring people and motivating people to push further than they ever have, and to encourage them that where they are at now, they can improve, right? Their better can be best, right? Your good can be better. That is what I feel like for me is where I need to be, and I feel like at Fitness on Fire is where that is found. I get to meet extraordinary people and people that have so many challenges in their own life, and being able to share my story and be able to relate to them the difficulties of being in a place where you feel stagnant, or being in a place that you feel like this might be it, and being able to encourage them like, hey, I've been there, hey, I've done that, and that's not where you're gonna stay. As long as you decide that's not where you're gonna stay, and you make it in your mind that this is not it, then you can get to where you wanna be. You just have to believe in yourself and have faith that you can get there. My name's Brian Matthews, and no matter where you're at in life right now, there's a reason why you're there, and even if you don't understand it now, try and make the most of it and learn so much from the experience that you can. Because one day you'll look back and you'll realize that maybe what you have gone through and maybe what you're going through now is just a learning lesson. And if you hadn't gone through that, you wouldn't be where you're at today. Take every moment for what it is and enjoy every moment and love everyone. What's going on, guys? This is Coach Brian Matthews, and this is my story.